Hi to the Crux audience. My name is Dave O'Brien. I'm the president and the CEO of Stuhini Exploration. We're advancing the Ruby Creek Molybdenum deposit near Atlan, British Columbia. It's a very advanced project, and we believe molybdenum is a metal of the future. We've got 3 other projects, a lot of base metal and nickel and zinc optionality. And I'd love you guys to have a deep dive into our company.
Dave, it's good to see you again. I haven't seen you since April last year. Have you been well? You've been safe and in hiding?
Yeah, I've been well. I mean, certainly the fishing tackle business is good, and then the mining industry is challenging, but a lot of fun. Yeah, safe, and kind of keeping low. I'm vaccinated and try and keep away from the public eye a little bit, but I'm looking forward to some sort of resumption of normality like we all are.
Yeah, amen to that. Hey, look, just want to catch up with you because it was enjoyed listening to the story last time out. Your company was a certain size. You got 4 projects, and I'm keen to understand how companies like you did last year. Obviously, because I'm looking at your share price; it's a little bit all over the place. Wasn't a lot of trading. I think that liquidity's low, but it didn't take much to move the price there. But you effectively ended up sideways for the year because you didn't really get up to too much. It seems. I mean, what do I need to know about what you got up to? Where would you point me?
Yeah, that's a good point. We've been a lot busier than people think. We had a pretty busy exploration season last year at Ruby Creek. We did 2,300 soil samples in one area. We did some soil gas hydrocarbons in other areas. We did some airborne geophysics and some ground IP geophysics. I had like 16 different people up there when I was up on site. But for us, the big change has been last time we talked, we were more or less incubating our molybdenum asset. We have what we believe is a world-class molybdenum asset, and molybdenum's had a pretty big move up. I think when I talked to you last, it was $11 or $12 a pound. It ran up to 20 in the last 6-7 months, and holding in the $18 to $20 range. Now, I don't want to sit here and tell the audience that it's economic, but internally we're pretty excited. Obviously, what are your NPVs? Do we use an NPV 5 or an NPV 8 or NPV 10 with this inflation? There's a lot of parameters. What's the price of moly to use in a model? Is moly going to stay up at these range? Molybdenum, is it going to drop down? But we're doing a major change of focus from sort of incubating our molybdenum asset and exploring for gold and silver. Now the molybdenum's our main focus, and we believe we have a large world-class deposit. So molybdenum has been the mainstay for us right now.
Right. So but how do people look at this, right? Because you're an industry guy, and we talked last time out about perhaps the way the retail look at it versus industry players, and I'm just sort of keen to explore that a little bit, or your thoughts on that, right? Because with 4 projects, we said we're going to park up the moly side of things. We're not going to talk about this as of last April. We want to talk gold, or we want to talk. I think we talked about South Thompson quite a bit, and a little bit about Big Ledge. You seem to be bouncing around a bit. I mean, is there a plan? Is there a focus for how you manage this portfolio? Because we're over to Ruby Creek now. You're pointing us there. What's the plan?
Yeah, well, these other projects we have, you see, when we obtain projects, we get a lot of projects on our desk. I mentioned that we have access to projects, and we don't chase stuff. I mentioned in a recent interview, why would I go to Newfoundland and pay millions of dollars and millions of shares for a project someone staked a year earlier for $5,000? We want to be the ones staking. So we've had some pretty nice projects end up on our desk we really couldn't say no to, and there'll be wins for our shareholders. And we will, some of these projects, for example, the Q project's good till 2026. Our zinc project in BC is probably good now till 2026. So you spend a bit of money on these things, and we've got a lot of optionality on those projects. And again, we didn't really foresee the price of molybdenum moving up like it is, but we have to act and we have to react. Back to what you said about the investors, we did a financing last summer. We raised $2.3 million, and I was a bit frustrated because the retail investors don't really get it, but mining executives, fellow CEOs, reputable people that understand, they're all over it. And even we recently were talking to large mining companies. They understand that this is a very advanced resource. It's close as it can. It came as close to being a mine as possible. It went through positive feasibility, it went through funding, it went through permitting, it had the native approval, and it was fully funded and under construction during the last cycle. And there's a reason for that. They had an $800 million credit facility lined up, and The road alone costs $22 million. So again, a lot of retail investors don't appreciate the advanced nature of the project and how it's pretty well ready to go. And for us, for example, to redo the feasibility study, the metallurgy's been done, the bulk sampling's been done, the geotechnical drilling's been done, the mine design's been done. So it's a lot less expensive to start a feasibility again from scratch. Most of the work's been done. So,
but how much would that cost you, right? Because if I'm a major looking at the size of you, I'm going to try and take advantage of the situation because you're cash constrained. You probably won't be able to afford to be able to finish the feasibility study unless you go and do another raise in the marketplace. I know the value of it as an industry guy. Market doesn't seem to appreciate it. I could pick this up real cheap. So how do you, as a CEO, defend yourself from that kind of predatory behavior or thinking, and actually get this thing funded? Are you JVing? Do you need a strategic? What do you do?
Yeah, you're right. There's many initiatives. First of all, I believe we have 4 or 5 catalysts in the background going on. We're in touch with the newsletter writer community. There seems to be some interest there. Also, the analyst coverage. We are talking to larger companies. We're looking at the possibility of a strategic investment from a larger company. Again, we want to monetize this a little better, increase our cap before we do any dilution. Doesn't make sense, but we're not vulnerable either. We have 43% insider held, and really, 75% of our stock is, held by high net worth investors, and so no one can really take a run at us if they want to. We also have a Chinese broker working on staff, and they want to fly me to China, and we're working on that behind the scenes. We're definitely conducting a strategic review, and it's almost becoming apparent right now. One of the things we've really come is that we almost need to break the company up because, the molybdenum, Ruby Creek is a 28,600 hectare concession, and the lease, the molybdenum is still permitted, but that lease is 9,000 hectares. The other 19,000 and change hectares is highly prolific for gold and silver. We're in part of the Atlan Gold Camp, the busiest placer camp in all of Canada. And none of these targets have been drilled. But again, we're not going to, I have silver investors saying to me, like, why aren't you drilling for silver? And I go, what do you care if I hit, a couple of meters of 2,000 grams silver when I've got, based on the historic resource, I have a gross in situ value over $10 billion sitting up the hill, road accessible, gentle terrain that's permitted. It makes no sense for us to, chase greenfields, exciting as it might be, right? So that's sort of our strategy.
So, so let's talk about that. A lot of things there. So you're trying to get a bit more coverage, I guess, to what end? For in terms of getting retail to actually understand the story a little bit more, or would that again be aimed at institutional? So what about coverage? What's that going to do for you?
Well, I think that, the retail coverage is the newsletter writers are pretty important for that. It really is an important avenue because they have a lot of clientele that read them and trust them. And I think it's pretty attractive. And again, we're in touch with the newsletter community. We've been back and forth with several different authors and people. That's one of the avenues to use. And again, if we take a strategic investment from somebody, we insist on a premium to market, right? If XYZ Mining comes in and buys 19.9% of Stuhini, it won't be at market. It'll be at a premium. Otherwise, we won't do it. We do have a lot of alternatives, and including outright sale of the asset. But again, we won't sell at these levels. But we've had a few people bounce around some prices.
Okay, so that was phase one. The second component was about you got a Chinese. Sorry, what did you say? Analyst on.
Oh no, she's a broker. She's on payroll.
She's a broker. Okay,
she's pretty connected. Yeah,
so she knows. Trotting off to China to do what? To say what? Obviously, that. Those are tricky conversations at the moment. Anything to do with the Chinese, it seems. So, what's your expectation from that conversation, or if it occurs?
Well, I think that's why we that might be a little further down the road.
Okay.
And the Sino-Canadian relationship right now are. I think that obviously the Huawei executive when she was detained, it killed all the China-Canada relations. Now they're back, starting to normalize a little bit. Right now, it's not a good market for that, but again, there is interest, and she's told me that she's talked to the president of China Moly and China Steel and some of these people, and they want to fly me to China, and we're trying to bring them to Atlan to see the project. But they're aware of it, and they're looking long term down the road, right? And I'll be honest with you, I would rather partner with a North American partner or a North American entity. But again, I have to create value for my shareholders, and we have to look at this and look at all options.
Competitive tension. Are you anywhere with North American partners in terms of discussions? Started any?
Early stage. And again, we've been very frustrated because we can't go to any of these shows and meet these people. We recently went to AME, and I'll be honest, we were very well received and really good conversations and right to the point. And there's definite interest. They're just okay. And again, this is where I get frustrated because other mining executives like what we have, whereby the retail people are sort of shrugging their shoulders and want the quick fix, right?
Okay, but they need to write checks. They need to put their hands in the pocket and pull out some coins. So, fourth thing, which is you mentioned, is maybe split up the portfolio and treat it that way. Either spin it into what, presumably Newco, or what are you thinking? Tell me.
Yeah, I think the best. Obviously, our main asset is molybdenum. So, and again, this is very hypothetical. I would say rename Stuhini Ruby Creek Molybdenum or what have you. That's not decided on, and then spin off all the other exploration assets into Stuhini 2. So Stuhini 2 will be a greenfields. It'll have the zinc in BC. It'll have the Q in the Yukon, and then Manitoba nickel, and the balance of the Ruby Creek tenures. And be fairly easy to fund. And we'd probably give people a full share. They'll get a full share in the molybdenum, and maybe a half share in Stuhini 2. So Stuhini 2 would be a real nice clean vehicle with 13 or 14 million shares outstanding and a nice portfolio of projects.
Okay, so again, I just want to say, two companies, Ruby Creek, molybdenum. I want to come back to that one. The second, Stuhini 2, that would be a what? Prospect generator exploration company? What's the model of that
project generator. I kind of like a royalty model better. I kind of would rather give someone 100% of our project. We'll keep the royalty and we'll get some shares of the company as long as we trust them, and we can get it back if they don't do their work. It's sort of model I like. I think the project generator model is interesting, but I've seen like Trey Wazer and Eli and things like that. I kind of, as an investor, I kind of like that model. But you take it as it comes on each different JV, and we might even, there's a lot of possibilities there. But I definitely think the focus of the SpinCo would be the Ruby Creek tenures, because that's a big, large land package. It's so underexplored.
Okay, and I will go there. I just want to stay with Stuhini 2, which is the prospect generator. Offload it somehow, shape or form, take a royalty, maybe some shares as well. It's a longer term proposition. But would you then continue to prospect generate? Would you continue to build up the portfolio there to flog those off? And do you have the team to do that, or would you be thinking, I need to spend more time over at Ruby Creek and advancing that? I mean, how do those two things work if and when they happen?
We've got I'm really proud of our team. We're a small little company. We're in-house. We have a good technical team. I have some of the better geologists in BC. It's hard to get good people. You're only as good as your people. I'll tell you one thing, to run any business, fly fishing in this. And we do have a good team. And we had recently, our guys were in Manitoba. They were walking and ground truthing drill targets, and went to the Manitoba drill core library trying to find some of the old nickel core. We've been up at the Revelstoke there doing an airborne survey. We're active on the other projects as well. But again, I would like other people to help fund these things, and we are in talks with other groups on these projects. And again, I think that Stuhini 2 the main focus would be exploring the rest of the non-moly aspects of Atlan would be our goal. And plus, we will not option our Q project in the Yukon to anybody. We really like that. Right? It's an early project, but we find it very attractive.
Okay, so if we look at that, I know you're not saying it's a definite. These are thoughts and options available to you. Ruby Creek, there can't be that many people who could take on a project of that size. Have you engaged in any kind of conversation with the handful of people that could be yet, or is that something a process that you've got to go through? In which case, how much more work do you need to do? How much more time? How much more money do you need to spend to get to that point?
Well, as far as the molybdenum asset goes, we can only move that project forward at the speed of the engineering firm. We hired MDA, Mine Development from Nevada, and Steve Rustricelli is I've been told hands down top 5 in the world for resource updates. We're very proud. We want to do things professionally, and we get conservative and get a really good firm. And they've agreed. We'll once the resource update's done, we'll move along. Does that mean we go straight to feasibility? No, you have to do a PEA or an internal scoping study, what have you. But that's only a $50,000 a month burn rate. It's not a, they have their team working on it. But that's as fast as we can move the Moly asset forward. Other than that, obviously, we're talking to potential JV partners and investors and trying other ways to monetize it. We've even had talks about offtake agreements, but we don't want to do that at this early stage. We don't want to give anybody any offtake agreements. We want to keep it as pure as possible. Okay.
And with the capital you've got available, how far is that going to take you in terms of how much further can you advance the Ruby project, the Moly project, before you need to either one, go and get some more capital or bring in that strategic partner, or whether it be purely financial or industry? What's the road look like?
Yeah, as it sits right now, we've got enough money to move the Molybdenum project forward for another year, just on the Moly. But that would be other projects are basically dormant, right? And we'll have a small exploration program up and out. And we've already decided, we always this time of the year you make your plans. And again, we would love to do some. We have so many drill targets with silver. We have a big silver news release coming up too. I think nobody cares, but last year we announced Silver Surprise. We had a 14,000 gram showing, and we've already told the market we've had similar findings. So it's but again, we won't unless we do another raise, and that's a possibility too. We just what we want to do is get our resource out and have our own resource where we can start talking numbers and show people what we have. I think it's very significant. Then I think we'll get some coverage and there'll be a lot more activity on our stock. I think that's a watershed event.
Yeah, that seems a sensible use of money and time, and you don't want to dilute by raising any money. So the other projects will take a backseat there in the sense that you're not going to spend money on them, but in terms of conversations, you can advance those. Right?
Yes, we are in conversations.
Okay, and you're seeing deals come across your desk every day. You told me earlier. So the Ruby thing is what we need to be looking at. Then, given that, don't you need to just, because looking at your marketing material, websites, PowerPoints, etc., is like, don't you need to be much clearer if given you've got a thought in your head about how this thing moves forward and where the intrinsic value lies? Because the bit in this I'm trying to weigh up that you said earlier was industry guys, CEOs know what we've got here. Retail doesn't. So what do you need to do? Because it's your responsibility, not retail's responsibility, to help them understand what it is that you've got and the way that you create this value for them going forward.
Yeah, we will see a large change of focus on our website and on our deck, especially once we get the Moly resource out and we'll become more of a molybdenum company. You're exactly right. You see, during the last cycle, 2003 to 2007, all the molybdenum stocks went viral. I mean, ADNAC, the former operator of our project had a market cap in excess of $250 million and an $800 million credit facility. And so that's very frustrating. But most of them, but a lot of those were just promotions. They're just moose pastures and things. But the better projects are held by the hedge funds. Recently, Greenland Resources listed, BC Moly listed. So the hedges are slowly bringing this. But this is exactly it. I can't single-handedly make the Moly space move. We don't have the budget or the ability on our own to do that. But I think that the hedge funds have a lot of money invested in the sector as they monetize these assets. We've heard Centerra wants to monetize their assets. There'll be a lot more of a buzz. And I think that for retail investors, you want to be in there early. Like when you read about molybdenum on the front page of the paper, it's too late. Right now it's on page 16 is what you like. And you want to get it because the sector, it is a green sector. The World Bank recently stated that Moly is a key metal going forward. It actually singled out copper and moly as the two most important metals going forward. And right now, molybdenum's moved up on demand from the steel sector. Of course, moly is a steel additive, and that's where the demand comes from. But it's steel is iron and carbon and molybdenum and sometimes tungsten. But Joe Biden's talking about rebuilding America. Well, bridges, when you have lightweight steel, that's high moly content, right? So again, it's not that well understood. And I'm surprised of all the metals, it's probably the one that hasn't moved, but it's also the one that's very compelling because there's very few pure play moly deposits out there. I mean, 85% of the molybdenum, from what I've been told, is byproduct. And other than Freeport's Climax projects, those are pure plays, but there's very few pure play moly projects out there. And we believe when you do a comparable and you put them on spreadsheets, we're happy, our VPX is happy to sit down with anybody and do comparables. And I think there's a reason why our project advanced the way it did during the last cycle. So I think that'll happen soon.